So guys, we for the past couple weeks, things have been kind of crazy with things going on back in Palestine, and with the interview we had last week. But one thing we forgot to address, it's very minuscule. It's not minuscule, but it's sort of a big thing.
I don't even know what you're about to say.
Since day one of starting this podcast, something that's been a constant and has finally changed. And what I'm talking about that she doesn't know what I'm talking about is the fact that Sara is no longer wearing braces.
Oh. I was like, where is he going with this? Because I know he's not going to say that I came on time. I came really late today. So I'm like, what is he about to say? What did I change?
Did you forget the fact that you literally, when I say day one, I mean the day we started the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Sara got her braces.
That is actually very true.
We started the podcast. She had, so we've literally, since this has started, that's how long she's had her braces on.
That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
That's actually, okay. So
and we haven't addressed it.
Smile one time for the camera. I just have to say.
Yeah.
It's been a tumultuous journey with those braces.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it oddly enough, kind of became my identity at one point.
Really? Even in just the 2 years that you've had it?
Only
actually,
because
no, it's been more than 2 years now.
Yeah, like 2.5
more
years.
than 2.5, actually, yeah.
But it impacted so many things about my day. I was careful with what I was eating because if I'm out, for example, okay, let me tell you, yesterday, you know how we had spring rolls?
Yeah.
I happily ate those spring rolls.
Oh yeah, you didn't have to worry about getting them in your teeth or getting them stuck in your braces.
Yes. And it's like October, so everyone at work has Halloween candy.
Yeah.
Best believe I'm eating that shit up.
Oh my God.
And I'm pretty sure I have a cavity now.
This girl. So you went from 0 to 100 real quick. You're like, F all that safety precautions. And technically it was making you eat more, it was making you more conscious about what you were eating. But now you're like,
well,
whatever.
No, I'm not going crazy. Oh, okay. But for example, burgers, anything that I would normally bite into, I was cutting up. I was eating with a fork and knife. How many times you would sit, I feel like I didn't even enjoy the flavors of food because I would take one bite and then rinse my mouth with water. You know how depressing that is?
Yeah. So now, so what's, that's the biggest thing that's probably changed.
No, brushing my teeth feels weird.
Really?
Because before I was I've gotten so used to brushing around my braces.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh my God, it feels so empty in my mouth. I still have teeth, of course, but it just feels smooth.
Yeah.
And I went to my first dentist appointment after getting my braces off. And let's just say in the past, I've had so many cavities, they know me, okay? They're like, oh my God, let's see your teeth. So they celebrated my braces coming off as well. I only have one cavity in the last 2.5 years, which is amazing.
Damn, better than me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bad one.
Yeah.
I have to get a crown.
Wait, a crown is where they, what do they do?
They basically, he explained this to me. I love my dentist. He explained it. He's like, so we're going to shave pretty much most of the tooth, around it. Yeah. And then just put a veneer type of thing. Not a veneer, but a crown on top.
I probably have to do that for
Wait, didn't you go to your appointment?
Oh no, that's not till November.
What?
Yeah.
You should have just came to mine.
I probably should have.
It would have been a little out of your way.
For context, I haven't gone to the dentist in 8 years.
It's been longer than that.
Probably.
Has it?
Honestly, I stopped counting after 8 years.
Amir.
It's been a long time. Okay, but life happens. Okay, you get.
But I want you to understand that first appointment. First of all, they're gonna make your gums bleed because they're gonna pick at it. Yeah. Then they're gonna tell you have 17 cavities.
No, I definitely have more than 5 cavities. Because I can see.
Do you feel it?
I can see the holes.
Amir. You can see the holes.
Yeah, I can see the cavities. It's bad. I'm gonna have to work on that.
I've always wanted to know what a cavity looks like.
I'll show you after.
No, but
I don't know. It's just from years of neglect.
Yeah, but why didn't you go sooner? Not neglect of going. Because the thing is, I brush my teeth, but I don't floss every day. Get a water pick.
What?
A water pick.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, I told you this last year.
I looked into it. Yeah. I was about to buy it and then just forgot.
No, I'm going to make you buy it after we record.
Okay.
It's actually really good. It's life-changing. I love it.
Really?
I got it because it's so annoying to floss with braces. Yeah. And this was just the easy way out. Yeah. And they have different pressure levels of the water. And it hurts. The first time I did it, I was bleeding. Yeah. But then eventually your gums
they get
used
stronger
to it.
or whatever. They callus over or whatever happens to your gums.
Well, no, you clean it out so you don't have gingivitis, so it doesn't bleed. But then I also have like what they're called Y picks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know what those ones are?
Oh yeah, I have those. That's what I used to
floss
for the longest time, and I still do.
The thing is that I was watching this video on TikTok. Oh my god! Honestly, at this point, TikTok should sponsor us because of how much we mention it. But anyways, this dentist was saying like simply just like sticking it in and then pulling it out is not not enough.
Why'd you laugh?
Because I just realized how that came out. Anyways,
that's what she said.
Threading it like just putting it in between your teeth and then pulling it out is not enough. You have to like push it in, and then you basically have to like push it inside your tooth. The anatomy of the tooth, for those that are watching, it's like this is the roots of the tooth and this is like the part that sits above your gums, like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so what she's doing right now is she's like sticking two of her fingers down.
Honestly,
like
just watch
teeth.
the video for this portion. I feel like a dentist. Maybe if I'm wrong, any dentists that are listening to this, correct me. But like this is how he explained it, right? This is your gums.
Yeah.
And this is the tooth, right? So these are the roots of the tooth. Mm-hmm. This is like the top part. Mm-hmm. And it's like that. So when you floss, you have to like bring the floss under like that. So you're like sticking the string in and then like pushing it up like that.
Is it top your gums?
This is your gums. So when you bring the floss in, if you're just bringing it down.
Why are you holding your 2 feet?
Because these are the roots of the teeth.
What? Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. This is riveting content for y'all.
Clearly.
Thank you. If you stuck around, we probably lost 90% of y'all already. But let's move on.
If they're listening, just know this podcast is so multifaceted. You can learn a little bit of everything on here.
So, but the main point here is that Sara has finally graduated and moved on to regular life again by having removed her braces,
and I no longer look 13.
Exactly. But yeah, again, a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, because last week we couldn't really address anything going on in the news because of the interview we did with Zaki Zico. If you haven't already watched or listened to that episode, go ahead and check that episode out. It was a great episode. He left a lot of
you guys loved that episode, actually,
because there was a lot of good advice there. He's done pretty much anything and everything under the sun, so he has experience with a lot of things that people could take from, and he gave a lot of good advice, so definitely check out that episode. So what has happened in the past couple weeks, or even more recently? So first off, in Palestine, of course, we have the current and constant barrage going down where Israel's just constantly attacking the Palestinian people, quote unquote, saying that they're like trying to get rid of Hamas, but of course they're hitting schools, they're hitting hospitals, they're hitting churches, they're hitting mosques, they're hitting anything except for Hamas's bases, apparently. And there's all these people on the pro-Israeli side are giving like excuses, saying, oh, but they're using them as human shields. And I think the best reply that I heard to this is that if there was a school shooter in America, would your response be blow up the school? It's like, sure, someone's using human shields. Usually when someone says, oh, they're using human shields, that means that you're limited in your recourse.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you can those humans are now like forfeit, like you can just kill them because they're using them as human shields. You use that word to warn people and say, okay, there's civilians that have potential of dying here, so we should maybe rethink our strategy. Maybe try something different. But that doesn't seem to be in their goals at all, or in their plans at all. It's funny how there are people who are still supporting the Israeli side, and there's all these quotes from like Israeli politicians literally calling them like animals. They're saying like we're gonna wipe them all out. Like these are all like very Nazi-esque kind of sayings. But I
have a lot of thoughts on that. I don't know, I feel like I like dissociated for like 2 seconds while you're talking, but it's just like I was literally just talking to Iman about this last night because she was saying like she's having a hard time just trying to be positive throughout all of what we've been seeing on social media. And I think the reason why some people support the Zionist movement is because they're so heavily brainwashed. You know, like there are a lot of people who are brainwashed into thinking that the Palestinians are taking over the Israelis' land.
Yeah.
Like they genuinely have been brainwashed to believe that. And so, you know, I don't know how, but it's possible, like, you know, you can be brainwashed into believing things. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
So that's why I think some people support the Israeli government's decision to not like stop what they're doing. Like they're basically rejecting the ceasefire. But I will say, like, the fact that a lot of other countries are finally kind of sort of speaking up about it, like some of them anyways, it's like, it's about time. But like, where were you the first couple weeks, the first 2 weeks, like when thousands of kids, and not just kids, like women, men, grandparents, whoever, were being like literally not even just killed, they were like being blown up. And it's crazy because like for all other genocides like this, like there wasn't social media, so we would hear about it, we would learn about it in school, and like you kind of sort of are like, oh man, like that's pretty messed up, you know what I mean? But you never actually saw it with your own eyes on scrolling casually on social media. Like this is the first time that I feel like the whole world is being exposed to it. And you know, and it's like baffling to see that some people are still blind to the truth when it's like very blatantly right there. Like it's one thing, like for anyone that's calling it a war, it's actually beyond me, because a war is when you have two sides fighting each other. This is a one-sided fight. Like you're literally just attacking the other side. That's literally it.
Yeah. Well, one thing to note here is that when you mention that, like, oh, how can they see all this stuff? The thing is that we've spoken about algorithms before and like how timelines are different. A lot of the reason for this is because they don't see it. It's because their algorithm is showing them something completely different. A lot of times these people are being shown sometimes doctored or like maybe older videos of Israelis getting killed or being finding themselves under like bombardment, which is first off a very rare thing if you see the death count versus the Palestinian death count. But like, there's a lot of propaganda being pushed, and we've seen it. The propaganda being pushed on one side,
right?
And a lot of the people who hold those views, where they're pro-Israeli views, is because their algorithm is showing them all the pro-Israeli doctrine, right? So it'll literally take you, like as a individual, to like go up and show them these things, because your algorithm is showing you something completely different. So they have to be exposed to it by people like us, you know, and we do that by like posting stories about it and all that. But clearly that doing it online, posting those stories online, is not really working out to our benefit anymore, because first off, the stories are getting suppressed, like we mentioned, and it's only being shared to your own followers. And usually your own followers will be the same people who listen to you or who agree with your views. So there is a divide there, right? Like, okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, today I was in the gym, and I just went up to say hi to a guy that I hadn't seen in a while. He's like a white gentleman. He was talking about, like, you know, his own business and how he's moving on to other things, whatever. But like, I think he started going into like conspiracies and like Israel and Palestine and Ukraine and Russia. He was just speaking about all these like crazy conspiracies, like just crazier than even what's going on right now in Palestine. And I realized that it's because like his algorithm is so different and so like warped compared to ours, that they're already kind of sucked in by all of those conspiracies, and they think that like a lot of these things are not real, or it's not actually happening the way that it is. And how do you reach those people who are already, you know, fallen into that conspiracy rabbit hole, essentially? Because those things it's almost essentially like another religion to them, right? Like they become obsessed. The way he was speaking about it is like someone who's obsessed with it, and like they get that wide-eyed look when they speak about it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do, but like, even if someone is so deep in their conspiracy thought or that belief of whatever it is that they believe, you could still, that doesn't mean they're like so far gone that you can never get to them. Like you could probably still open his eyes to the truth in a way. You have to kind of be wise about it, but I don't know, like it's so like, I just feel like this heaviness on my heart, like at all times. And I haven't felt like this in such a long time. And it's not like this is just like a new situation, but it's like the fact that it's in our faces all the time. And I feel even I can feel the privilege oozing out of me even just saying that, because you know, the Palestinians have been dealing with this for years. It's in their faces all the time, and they don't get a break. They can't just switch it off. You know what I mean? So it's just it's a lot.
But it's been happening. It's never like there is the Palestinian situation, but there's also the people in Yemen. There's people in Sudan. There's the people in like
Congo,
the Congo, the Uyghur
Syria.
Muslims, Syria. It's happening everywhere constantly, right?
Oh yeah,
and
it's like
the unique situation here is that like those issues are being addressed. Like there's no weird conspiracy going on with a lot of those issues, kind of at face value. So maybe that's why it doesn't get as much attention, because we see what the issue is. We know there's no one's trying to like lie about the situation that's going on there. Or maybe they are. We just haven't been fed a lot of that information. And
maybe it's my algorithm that's skewed, but I just feel like with what's happening in Palestine, it's like everyone is recording it like live as it's happening, and there's a lot of press there that because I think they're doing that, and they're oversaturating the content because they know that the media is not on their side. Like the news, you know, just a couple weeks ago were claiming that there were 40 babies that were beheaded, and they literally made that up.
Yeah, a lot of the information that came out about that attack from Hamas turned out to be false, or at least it's starting to come to light that a lot of the information, like where a lot of the civilian deaths on the Israeli side came from friendly fire or from crossfire, where the police and soldiers, they're actually instructed to kill civilians if they see that they're being held hostage by Hamas or the enemy in their case. So of course this is like all like new information, right? And they're still confirming a lot of it, but it's being confirmed by Israeli
like
media and like their own, because the thing is that the Israeli media is also not really on, some of them are not really on Netanyahu or the Israeli government side, right? And a lot of them of course are being jailed for it and being attacked for it and even being killed for it. There are Israelis out there who are trying to call this out in their own way, but of course it's being suppressed by their own government, but eventually, you know, when the dust settles, it will come to light what the actual situation was. And I don't think it'll look good I definitely know it won't look good for the Israeli side, especially when it comes to this catalyst that caused this whole issue to occur. It didn't go down how they're saying that it did. The thing is that we're always taught like an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. And like usually you don't stoop down to the enemy's level, but the fact that they've not only stooped down to the enemy, well, they're considered enemy's level, but like gone 5, 6, 7, 100 times worse than them, like by using chemical warfare, which is like against international law when it comes to war dealings or war, and it's being brushed over. So like we mentioned earlier with the human shield, like these things and attacking hospitals, these are things that are not allowed in war. But whenever you bring them up, it gets brushed over. It's like, oh yeah, they're doing that. It's like, whatever. Okay. But yeah, Hamas. It's like,
you know why?
They're using white phosphorus. Yeah. But like Hamas, it's like, what?
I've seen so many of the conspiracy videos and like, why isn't the U.S. government stopping them? Like, why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? And I actually saw this really interesting one last night, and I was like, this is all alleged information, obviously. Like, I didn't really do a deep dive of research in this, but like apparently one of the executive, he might be the CEO of BlackRock, is married to the executive director of UNICEF.
It's not that deep. All those conspiracies, it's not that deep.
But it was interesting because they were saying that like BlackRock is one of the largest investors in some kind of weapon that they use.
Well, no, it doesn't go. Of course, there is the whole industrial complex or something like that, military industrial complex. That's a whole other thing. But the reason Israel is such a like a they support it almost wholeheartedly, like whatever they do, and the fact that Biden was even questioning the amount of civilians that were killed, which prompted the
names to be released.
Yeah, the names to be released, the official names of everyone who has been killed, at least the ones that they've been able to register have been killed. And of course, there are like thousands of people that they haven't accounted for who are under the rubble or just haven't made it to a hospital, because those names are just the people who have made it to hospitals alone. But he was questioning that number of people, and if you were a full-on like America head, like America would like you believed in the imperial pursuits of America, then it completely makes sense why they would defend Israel at all costs, because to them, like I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, it is a what do you call it? It's like a way that they can keep control of the rest of the Arabian Peninsula around there and the other countries, and have like at least a base or some type of way of keeping an eye on the rest of the countries on the western part of the world or eastern part of the world, right? So that's their like strategic plan of
I did see
keeping
that too.
Israel in place. Well, we talked about it literally.
No, I know, but I'm saying I did see a video on that too.
But that makes the most sense geopolitically. That makes the most sense for them to defend them, because they need Israel. The only thing is that like, why can't they? Oh no, actually no, because they also hate Muslims and Arabs in general. So that's also a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely rooted in some form of racism and
imperialism, all of that. You gotta hold strong. You gotta have trust in Allah.
But that's the thing. That's what I was gonna get to.
Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it defeat you.
No, I know.
There's so many good things also coming out of this.
No, and I totally hear you, and I agree, because I literally gave Iman this advice last night. Like, I know that, you know, as Muslims, we are obliged to, is that the word? Obligated, obliged, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. But we're obligated to remain steadfast and like have faith in Allah. Like at the end of the day, the biggest reminder is that as very tragic these events that are taking place are, like this life, this dunya is temporary.
Yeah.
So and to think like all of those that are being blown up, quite frankly, in Palestine, they're all martyrs.
Yeah. This is the ultimate test of not only the people in that part of the world, but all the Muslims around the world, or all the people around the world, right?
Right. Because here's the thing, like they are feeling the like the physical backlash, I guess you could say, not even backlash, but they're like physically being injured there. They're being
physically confronted with
and for death. Muslims and Palestinians, Arabs alike on the western part of the world, like there was that little boy in the States that got murdered by his landlord. Like, you know, it's a scary time for all Muslims and all Arabs, really. Like Palestinians, and I feel like Americans are too dumb to ever differentiate between like Arab and Muslim. Like they don't know it's the same to them, right? So like there's this like everyone's kind of like on edge. It's like almost reminding me of how things were like post 9/11, except we were too young to even really feel it at that time. But I'm sure, you know, those older than us, our parents, etc., like to the point where like now my mom's like, oh, you know, like be careful when you go out. I'm like, why? Why would I, like, what do you mean? She's like, just, you know, don't wear the, you know, the Palestinian scarf. Don't wear that. I'm like, it's fine. Like we're fine. But she keeps like, I understand her fear as well. Right. So I'm like, okay, now I'm back to that phase of like, I have to think twice about if I'm going to go out late, who I'm out with. You know what I mean? Like it's just a very like interesting time to be in. Yeah. And like I mentioned, like this is a test for everyone's iman and resolve. For sure. But like there are silver linings. I try to look for silver linings in every situation. Yeah, always. I think the silver lining in this one is that it's exposed a lot of people to the steadfastness and the resolve of Muslims. And it's made a lot of people who didn't know even what Islam was to look into Islam. Yep. It's caused a lot of people to look into what the Quran is, what we believe, because they see all these videos from their own words. They see all these videos of people being faced with death, of being with like their whole families
are either dying in front of them or have already died, yet they're still praising Allah and trusting in his judgment and his power and his knowledge and everything in this situation. And they're like, why do with facing all these things, why are they still so steadfast in their belief? So people have started buying the Quran, and I want to believe that it's more than just my algorithm showing me this.
No, I see it too.
No, because we have pretty much the same algorithm in that case, right? I want to believe that like this is something that's generally happening around the world, because I have to still acknowledge that like my algorithm is only showing me these things because I like them and knows what I want to see.
Yeah.
And even the comments alone, like things that are what I just mentioned, it could be just because my algorithm is showing me, and then the numbers of people actually looking at this are smaller. But I want to believe that it's actually a lot bigger than that.
I think so.
What?
Like I think it is bigger than that.
That is bigger than that, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't limit it to just your algorithm. Like especially because if people are talking about embracing Islam, or at least being open to learning about
looking into it,
like then it's obviously going beyond just a Muslim person's algorithm.
Yeah, and like there's so many things that we take advantage of knowing about Islam that I didn't even think that people didn't know about Islam. Like how people didn't even know that like Islam was part of the like Abrahamic religions.
They didn't know that.
They didn't know, like there are people who didn't know that like Isa or Jesus is mentioned in the Quran. People don't know that Moses or Musa is mentioned in the Quran. Like they didn't know that a lot of that stuff is part of our Muslim lore, I guess you could say, that we just believe differently on how they were presented. Like in Christianity, they believe that like Jesus is Lord, but we believe that he was a prophet. Yeah. And the Judaism, like we believe that there was an original Torah, but then it was corrupted over time. Yeah. Same thing with the Injil and well, the Injil and the Bible are not the same thing.
Oh, it's not. I thought it was the original.
The Bible is like their interpretation or something like that.
Like a variation of it?
Yeah, maybe? Variation. But the Injil is like something else. I don't believe there's any copy or any like real text of the Injil at all.
Oh, that's left over from that time.
It's left over from that time. But yeah, it's just interesting seeing people's first introduction to Islam in general. And even if it just goes that far, the fact that people even have an idea of what we believe now is, I think, a positive. If there is any positive, that's what you can take from it. Yeah,
I think that like when it comes to like where you said you didn't know that people didn't know certain things about Islam, like I remember I used to have such a naive way of thinking of like, well, if all Muslims, and I guess that's because my inner network was mostly Muslim people, so everyone kind of knew the same things. Yeah. But then, you realize when somebody asks you a question that could seem so like simple, and you're like, what? You don't know what that is? And then you're like, wait, if you're not Muslim or you're not exposed to Muslim people often, you're not going to know these things. Yeah. And so it made me realize like, it's very nice to see that people are actually seeing Islam for what it is rather than letting like fear take over and then therefore perpetuate like this like prejudice that they have against Muslims like it once was in the past, Yeah,
because like I like what I try to relate it to or think about it in my ignorance in something is that like how much do you know about Hinduism?
Not much,
right? How much do you even know about Judaism?
Not much.
See? So like when I think I literally I can't even think of one ritual, like one thing.
I know like like a couple things.
No, but like in Hinduism, I can't think of one thing that's related to that religion in any way. So that's how I try and think like, oh, that's how people think of Islam. But I guess, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like if you aren't interacting with or coming across someone who is Hindu, you're not going to know. You're not, unless you have an interest to do your own research, like the only way that you would learn about it if you're not doing your own research is someone telling you about it, right? Yeah. So like someone, oh my God.
But what happened?
I keep pulling this damn cord.
Oh, that doesn't come out.
No, I know, but it keeps making my headphones lopsided and it's annoying. What I was going to say was even with Judaism, like if you don't know someone who's Jewish and you're not doing your own research, like you're never going to know. And same thing with Islam. Yeah. If you don't know a Muslim person or you're not automatically interested in Islam, like the media already presents us in one way, right? So like you may have like some idea of what you think Islam is like, but it's 9 times out of 10 nothing like what the media says it is.
Yeah, like even there's a comment made earlier where you said like, oh, you know, Americans, they only think that Arabs are Muslim. But then again, it's like, I don't even know the answer to this, but are all Hindus Indian? Because I used to think that all Hindus are Indian, but do you know, are there Hindus, are there people who believe or practice Hinduism that aren't Indian?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Do you know this for sure?
Yeah, I'm not going to say it like that, but like
Yeah.
I interacted with people who are of Hindu faith and they're not all from India.
But like the thing is that it's because you uniquely live in a place where you interact with people of different faiths, of different backgrounds almost every day. But let's say you're in America where that's less likely. You wouldn't know that.
No.
So that's why I don't judge people as much when it comes to their knowledge on who even believes in Islam. Because if I never interacted with another Muslim in my life, or even an Arab person, I might make that connection where I might say, oh, don't only Arabs believe in Islam?
I'm going to beg to differ. You want to know why?
Why?
Because that's like saying only white people are Christians. Your religion and your ethnicity or your race it's not the same thing. It's 2 different things, right? Like you can believe in something and you could be any race.
Yeah, but can you see how that can be confusing for someone who maybe is a Christian, a white Christian in the middle of America, and they know that when it comes to Judaism, like because of what they've not recently, but like in the last 100 years, they've connected Judaism strictly to the Jewish people. So they made the religion an ethnicity in itself as well.
I think that's the only...
But that's because we know that.
Example of that, though.
Yeah, but that's because we know that that's the only example of that. So like there are things that we take advantage of knowing because we uniquely live in a location where there's a lot of multiculturalism. There's a lot of promotion of interacting with people who aren't like you.
So what you're saying is you're excusing the ignorism.
What's wrong with ignorism?
That's not the word.
Ignorance. Sorry. Yeah. Shoot. My bad.
I'm like ignorance. No, what's the word?
Ignorance, right? You're excusing the ignorance. Yeah.
You're excusing.
I completely, for a second, I was like, yeah, sure, ignorism. Why not? Yeah.
You're excusing the ignorance of Middle America. I'm not even going to really limit it to Middle America.
Only if it goes as far as just being ignorant, but not judging and not using it. Because, like,
but my thing is, how
you can be ignorant to a situation, like me being ignorant to the fact that, like, not knowing, to thinking that, like, all
Indians
are
Hindu?
Indians,
or
not all Indians, all Hindus are Indian, but then not using that to like judge them or take it or use it in a negative manner. Because because like to give you for that example for like Arabs and Muslim, like they can believe that like all Arabs are Muslim, but then when they start to believe things like all Muslims are terrorists, that's where it becomes an issue.
But they did believe that. And that's because of their ignorance.
Maybe some of them, yeah.
But like Amir, I can't.
I see what you're trying to. I see what you're trying to go to.
That's literally like, and I know for a fact that Christians don't believe, even if you are like the most ignorant person in the world, not even just America.
Yeah, the
most ignorant person. You know that there are different races. Like you can't live life on this earth unless you're on a secluded island and there's no such thing as TV, internet, anything. You know that there are other races and other religions. Like you may not know too much about it, but you know that they exist. That being said, even if you're in a quote unquote like white neighborhood or an all black neighborhood, you know that there are white Christians, black Christians, Asian Christians, any other race, right?
Yeah.
So why would you just simply be like, well, they're only one type of Muslim? Like, there's over 1 billion Muslims in this world. I highly doubt they're all Arab. Like, that's so crazy.
The thing, it's like there's so many. You know what I always go back to? You remember those videos? I mentioned this before. Those videos when they go to kids on the street or like just people on the street, and they ask them the most basic questions.
Yeah, like where is Ethiopia on the map? And
like geography, math. Like we got the jokes, like what is it? What's like 21 plus like 10? And they're just like, goddamn 47.
How many stars on the American flag?
Shit, we got 13 colonies, so 13 minus 50. 13 minus 50, goddamn 47.
Remember that video?
What?
Yeah, you know the meme, right? Because unfortunately, like America's rotting education system,
It's
I
crazy.
give them a blind. Maybe they are stupid in like the actual sense of the word.
My thing is, how are you going to be a first world country,
Yeah.
one of the most powerful nations in the world, allegedly,
Mhm.
according to everybody else, but you have some of the dumbest people that are truly so ignorant?
Because they can afford to be dumb. Right?
That's so sad, man.
Mhm.
America is literally just, it's a third world country with a Gucci belt is what they say, is it not? That's what they say about America. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere and I
Mhm.
thought that was pretty funny. But it's sad to see because on one hand, you have the privilege of living in, or I guess being a citizen of
Mhm.
a first world country,
Yeah.
a powerful nation, a wealthy, I guess, ish nation.
Mhm.
But, and I don't know, like, is the education system in the U.S. as a whole, is it that bad? Or is it just certain
well,
parts?
like it's usually the lower income areas that have a
It's
worse education
unfortunate.
system. Yeah.
Because the American government seems to like to spend billions and billions of dollars on guns and
Well, like you asked the question, how are they the number one countries? Because of that.
yeah, but they're spending their money on all the wrong things.
Well, they're spending on all the things that will keep them in power.
That's very sad.
Yeah, it's the weapons and the military-industrial complex I mentioned earlier. You know, that's keeping them in power. How do we get onto this? Oh, you're talking about like ignorance and all of that. But yeah, you know, that's
Yeah.
why essentially my point there was like I try not, even though I've done it in the past, I'm starting to try to be more
Optimistic,
and more like
hopeful.
that.
And same.
Yeah.
It's just like sometimes, like when you stop and think about it, you're like, man, like you can't help but make
It is
dua.
frustrating. It's frustrating. I
You
know.
can't help but make dua for them, and then you're just like, sometimes I don't know if you do this too, but when I'm watching, I'm just like, I literally cannot imagine living a life like that. Like if that was to happen here,
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know how I would cope. Like,
With bombs and everything.
yeah, like do you go to like your life just stops? You don't go to work. Who cares about work at that point? Like, you know, your country's being bombed,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like, I don't know. I can't imagine what life is like there, but it's all we can do. Like that we really only have power to do is to make dua. And when we make dua, like truly believe that like no one is successful without the help of Allah, and no one can evade, you know, harm without the help of Allah. Like at the end of the day, like that's really just it. And it's that reminder of like, in your lowest points, you turn to Allah. In your highest points, you turn to Allah. And, you know, we've spoken about this in other contexts, more so like whenever you're like personally low or high.
Yeah.
But this is like on a much grander scheme, right? So
Scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly I can't talk today, but yeah.
And yeah, it's like, and also like, I do see like people trying to say like, oh, you know, they try to make predictions of what's going to happen. They say like Allah is going to do this. It's like, we don't know what Allah wills to happen next. He's the ultimate of planners, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen next from here. It could get much worse. It might get much worse. It could get better tomorrow. At the end of the day, we have to just put our trust in Allah and believe that everything, well, it will go as He planned. But
Yeah.
you know, we will still continue to pray. Oh, sorry, a major fact we never even mentioned is the fact that there's currently, we're recording this on what day?
Sunday.
October 29th, Sunday. So there's currently a communications blackout.
I thought it was lifted, no? Or
Gaza. No, so what's happening
Elon
is that
Musk
Elon Musk and the Egyptian telecommunications company Vodafone, they're building, so Vodafone is building towers close to the border of Gaza. So like the people who are in Gaza can at least get some type of telecommunication connection. And then I believe also Elon Musk said that he will be trying to get like Starlinks into there, which are satellite internet, into the country. But thankfully, like we have people on the ground who eventually were able, after the blackout, they're able to go to like the top of buildings and get some type of cellular communication, because there's a lot of press still in Gaza.
Yeah.
So they've been able to get out some information by just like going to the top, literally just going to top buildings and doing the classic thing of putting your phone up in the air and trying to get some signal, or like trying to get it to go out, basically.
So crazy how how the Israeli government is getting away with all this, but you know what? He'll get what he deserves. They'll all get what they deserve. I'm gonna just leave it at that. You can take it how you will.
Yeah. But yeah, before we move on, we're gonna take a quick break here, and we're gonna come back with some more news.
Yeah.
And we're back. So another thing that has, we'll talk a little bit about pop culture here, is now there's almost like two sides to the media industry, right? So we had, I don't know if we mentioned it already. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we just talked about it personally. But we have like the group of celebrities, pretty much your A-list celebrities, who came out with the get the hostage back. They sent an open message to Biden to like get the hostages back from Hamas. So essentially the pro-Israeli side. And then you have the 2,000 plus celebrities on the other side who are calling for a ceasefire. And I feel like this will be like a major split in the industry. I don't know if you feel that way, because there's also been the multiple boycotts now. Like everybody's boycotting Starbucks, even though we should have been boycotting them to begin with. Yeah. But people are boycotting them completely now, like not even playing around with it anymore. Right. To the point where even some employees of Starbucks are starting to quit because they've had a history of supporting the Israeli government. And the celebrities themselves. So the way I think it's going to change, first off, like, will you start taking an active, not role, but like, will you actively start to avoid watching or supporting material that's made by people who came out to be pro-Israeli?
Yeah, probably. Like
because there's some big names on the list, like big names as in like people who are, they've been making the biggest movies out today.
Yeah, but I don't even watch movies like that. I don't even watch movies like that. So I'm just...
But it's not only movies, TVs, and everything.
I think that it's a very, like, how should I put this? If, like, are they pro-Israeli because they genuinely believe that Palestinian lives don't matter and are not as important as Israeli lives? Or are they pro-Israeli because they're afraid of the repercussions of what could happen with their career?
So that was going to be my other question, is like, do you think that we should judge these people because essentially they're doing what I mentioned a couple weeks ago, what the countries around Israel are doing, where like they're trying to keep their mouth shut and like play nice with Israel because they don't want to feel that backlash, because they know that the moment they do anything that will show that they're even somewhat neutral or against Israel's interest, they will start losing jobs. Information will randomly start coming out about them having some weird past, like because there has been celebrities, or even there was a guy that I saw who was a voice actor. Like, he said that he started just as a small guy, like not like a big actor or whatever. He's like, yeah, I just started reading up. This was before all of this was going down. He's like, I started reading up about what was going on in Palestine. And I think like back in 2014, he ended up joining one of the rallies, and he was posting about it on his social media. And there were guys like warning him, be like, hey, you should, why you shouldn't be watching what you're posting, all that thing. And then one day he was like called in for a meeting, and one of the executives like walked in, stared at him deeply in his like face, like got up to his face, didn't say anything, and just walked out of the room. And he said a week later he was dropped by his agency. And then since then he hasn't been able to get like constant work like he used to. Before he said that like he was hot, but it went straight from hot to cold immediately after that. And those A-list celebrities, I have a feeling a lot of them don't, not a lot. I don't want to give them too much grace, even though I try to give people grace, but like I feel like a lot of them,
they don't deserve our grace.
They have those interests where they don't want to lose.
Yeah, I mean, Huda,
paychecks.
The CEO of Huda Beauty, like the makeup company. Yeah. So she said that she made a video saying that she actually learned about what's actually been happening in Palestine / Israel in 2018, I think. And when she finally learned the truth, because she didn't actually know, like she grew up in America, and she said that whatever information she was fed was the Israeli propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So when she eventually
What's
learned,
Huda's background?
she's Arab, but she grew up in the States and then moved to, I think she lives in Dubai, I want to say now.
Yeah.
And so when she learned the truth, she, went to the protests that were happening at the time. I think 2018 or 19 was when they bombed Sheikh Jarrah, I think. Do you remember? We actually spoke about that.
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, she went to that protest and she was about to launch her makeup line or whatever in Israel until she learned what happened. And she's like, oh, hell no. Like, as much as the Zionist movement does not equate to all Jewish people, or it doesn't reflect all Jewish people, she just in her heart couldn't support the Israeli government and the Israeli economy because of that. Yeah. And so she pulled her line and said, I'm not going to launch there. And then she said that people were warning her. They're like, oh, your career is going to be over, like, before it even starts. And they were like really getting at her. And she was like, you know what? Even if my career is over, at least I still have my dignity. At least I'm still standing up for what's right and human decency. I would rather have my dignity than have a career based on, whatever is going on. And even to this day, like, she said, I'd rather have my dignity than make money from blood money is what she said, something along the lines of that. So I think that for celebrities, yes, there's that fear of, being dropped from their agency and not getting work. And it depends, right? Because each person values different things, right? Some people value, it's crazy because a lot of them on the list, though, the ones that support Israel, are self-proclaimed humanitarians. Yeah. But they're not standing up for human rights and humans being literally obliterated. Like, they're not standing up for that. Yeah, well, a lot of that stuff is also just for the cameras. And of course it is. Yeah. Of course it is. It's to buy, not votes, because you're not voting for anything, but it's to gain popularity. Like woke points? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know what the right word is, but like, yeah. But it's that, and then it's also like, if we're going to take it back a bit, a completely separate issue, the Black Lives Matter movement. Do we really think that a lot of people genuinely educated themselves on that movement, or were they just posting a black square on Instagram because everybody was, and if you didn't, then you'd be called out? Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I think it's the same sort of thing now, where they probably just signed this petition or put their name down on this Instagram post because they were probably pressured from their peers, and they're like, well, I could choose to ignore it. Yeah. Or I can kind of sort of speak on it on a neutral basis-ish. I don't know. I just think that at the end of the day, like, there's a very clear line now. You're either on one side or the other. Like, you can't really ride the middle because you're going to get called out regardless. You can ride the middle by just not addressing it at all. But you're still going to get called out. Because how could you be so silent when something is very blatantly in your face now? Like, you can no longer say, oh, I didn't know about it. Because you'd have to, I feel like it's actually so prominent now that you would have to actively be avoiding that type of content. Yeah, but then, like, they could also say, like, oh, but I don't see you posting about what's happening in Congo. I don't see you constantly talking about what's going on in Yemen or Sudan or Ethiopia or these places. I really want to encourage all of you guys. I don't remember the details of that episode, but go to our earlier episodes where it's called the Tragedy Olympics. It's basically that. Yeah. Right? Like, and I remember a point that we made back then was like, how do you focus on, if you were to sit here and focus on every single issue, conflict, war, tragedy, genocide that's happening in the world, you would probably drive yourself insane and to extreme depression at that point, especially if you're someone who has compassion and empathy for other human beings. So we were saying in that previous episode, and I still stand by this belief, you tend to focus more on issues that maybe you can sort of relate to, So with Palestine, the issue that's happening in Palestine, it started off anyways, like a couple years ago, it started off only really like the attention and the focus came from other Palestinians, some Arabs in general, Muslims in general. Why? Yeah. Because in Jerusalem, there's the Masjid al-Aqsa. And I believe Jerusalem itself is, said that's so weird. It's considered a holy site for Muslims, Christians, and Jewish people, right? Yeah. So it's a unique, it's a unique spot in that sense of like, it's important to everyone. But like for Muslims, in general, like that's considered one of the holy sites for us.
Yeah.
And then now, because it has what's the word I'm trying to, like, it escalated so much, it's no longer just a Muslim or Palestinian issue. Now it's like a overall humanitarian issue, right? It's
Well, it's always been an overall humanitarian
it always
issue.
has been, but I'm saying, like, for the rest of the world, like, they're finally starting to open their eyes up. Like, it's not just a little Muslim issue or Palestinian issue is what I'm saying. I know for us, we know that it's always been that.
Yeah.
Right? So, and this is not to discredit or discount what's happening in the other parts of the world. Like, at the end of the day, a tragedy is a tragedy. There's no, if one person dies versus if 100 people die, it's still the same level of sadness. It's still the same level of, like, it shouldn't be happening. But I feel like, and this is the point that I was trying to make earlier, was with the stuff that's happening in Palestine. I'm saying, like, a lot of people have it on their phones, and we're seeing it on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, wherever. But with what, like, for example, what's happening in Congo, I saw a text post. I'm not seeing videos of it, and maybe that's just my algorithm. Maybe I'm not seeing it. It could be on other people's pages. I'm not sure. So that's why I think, like, to that point that you made.
Where, like, so you think that no matter who you are, you should be saying something about the situation.
And even when it comes to, like, speaking up, because, you know, some people are like, oh, well, I only have like 3 followers. What's the point? Yeah. You know, and maybe, okay, fine. In that case, like, it's not even like you're looking to make an impact, because you could have 1 million followers or 20 followers. The point is, when it's more of an algorithm push, right? Especially for this in particular thing, people are getting shadow banned, accounts are being deleted, posts are being deleted, and so the more people repost it, you kind of get a wider
you're like throwing out, what do they call it, like the fish net thing?
Yeah.
Like throwing out the bigger the net you have, the more fish you might catch, right? Yeah. So the more people who post about it, maybe at least it'll reach more people. Yeah. Just because of the sheer numbers of the amount of people posting it. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think I was talking to someone the other day about it. I was like, I've noticed that, like, okay, this might be a controversial thing, but I was like, I've noticed that, like, the East Asian community isn't really, I haven't seen a lot of interaction from that community. When I say East Asian, not South Asian, but East Asian, like China, Korea, Japan, all those places. But I think it's just because, like you mentioned, they just can't relate to this in any way at all. Yeah. Like, they're usually more secular, or they're Buddhist, if anything. They don't know anything about Arabs or Europe, or, like, they know about Europe, but, like, it's very, like, surface level and all those things. So, like, if one person brushes off, say, oh, they have, like, a holy war going on, it's like, whatever. They'll just push it off too, and just think about whatever is going on in their area. So that's why I'm like, okay, maybe if you don't say anything about it, but at least, like, if you are going to say something, make sure you're educated first. Yeah. Because there are definitely some, like, Asian influencers that I follow that I haven't even, like, mentioned in any way at all. And
I find it's just so strange. Like, you know, you're scrolling through and it's like you're seeing dead bodies here and people being literally pulled out of the rubble.
No,
and
you're seeing that.
Sorry, yeah, that's what I'm seeing that as I'm scrolling, and then as I continue to scroll, it's like outfit of the day, how to style a dress shirt. I'm like, this is so strange. It's so strange. Like, but it's a weird feeling.
On that point, yeah, if you see like people who are first like supporting or pro-Palestinian, supporting the protests and, like, supporting ceasefire and all these things, if they're posting about, like, you know, if they're out here trying to still make money and, like, trying to build a brand, like, support them as much as you can. Don't judge them. Like, I know that we're in a crazy time right now, but these are the people we want to highlight as much as possible, because it comes down to, like, supporting your community, right? Yeah, and everybody and unfortunately, it's because their income comes from, I know I'm kind of biased here, but their income comes from social media. So sure, they have to speak. They're speaking about all these things on social media as well, but they also have to make their job is on social media. So,
but I wasn't talking about those people. Yeah, because if you're posting about Palestine, but
no, but I'm not talking about. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to general people, because I see this a lot. I see people being like, "How could you be posting about these things?" And this time, it's like, yeah, they still have to make money. Like,
Yeah.
don't you want these people who are speaking out about this to
Maintain their platform.
Because if they only speak about this, they're going to lose that platform, and then you're not
Right.
going to have anyone to speak out for you anymore.
Right.
So you want to continue to support these people, especially, like I mentioned, the people on the other side who signed the papers for for the ceasefire in Gaza. Like, we should be supporting those people more. Look into what they're making. Look into what their projects they're doing right now. Even if it's not related to what's going on in Palestine or Gaza right now, support it as much as you can, because you want those people to be at the top.
Right.
The people who are on the other side, who are pro-Israeli and calling for, it's a good thing that for hostages, you don't want innocent people to be killed in general on both sides, but like, you don't want them to continue to hold these places in power where they can shun people who try to speak out about what's going on in Palestine. You want to support the people who are speaking out about it. So don't go ahead in their comments and try to shame these people. Support them, and make sure you're bringing light to the people who are actually making a positive difference in your community. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because it is frustrating when you see that stuff. Yeah,
the logic behind it makes no sense too. Because I know those people that are commenting and shaming them on wherever social media platform. Aren't you going to work?
Yeah, it's literally like going to someone's work and be like, "How could you be working a full-time job in these times?" It's like, what?
Yeah,
I still have to make money.
Exactly, and I think, like, because I'm trying to understand both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I obviously understand this side because we're still posting. Not that this is our primary source of income, but we're still. I find that every single episode that we talk about now, it comes back to this anyways, but we're still posting, you know what I mean? And is it going to be status quo? Like, yeah, no, we're going to continue to talk about it as much as we can. However, I feel like the angle that they're coming from is like, well, if you're in the entertainment industry, the influencing industry, if you want to call it that, you should have some sort of like empathy and maybe put that on a pause. But it's like, first of all, I don't know if some people know how the influencing industry works, but when you have sponsorships, you actually have deadlines. So although you're not working a 9 to 5, you still have deadlines to post content. And if you don't post it, then you lose your sponsorship. If you lose your sponsorship, you're not going to make your money. That's literally where majority of the income.
It doesn't stop there.
Because you could be blackballed later.
Yeah,
Is that the word?
Blackballed. Or but essentially, like, that company might not want to work with you because they see that you can't stick to your contract in the future.
And the marketing industry is like pretty tight knit, right? Like, if you mess up with one company, then another company wants to work with you, and maybe they have friends with the one that you previously messed up in. Yeah, they'd be like, "Oh, don't work with this influencer because they let their like personal beliefs impact their posting schedule or something along the lines of that." You know, so at the end of the day, a job is a job, regardless of where you're working, whether you're an influencer or you're working, your 9 to 5 or whatever, a regular job that's outside of social media. So I think. I don't think it's right for you to shame people for continuing to do what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. I've seen cases where like an influencer who could be Muslim. I spoke about this last time. You know that Nabila girl where she kind of posted this post when it first happened on October 7th, like a post of like neutrality where she said like, I stand with Israel and Palestine. And I was like, ooh, girl, that's not a good look. And after that post, which she deleted, she kind of resumed posting like normal content and people were like really going in on her in the comments. Yeah. And then she later then, like I think like a couple days ago, posted about joining some sort of meeting about Palestine and like ways to help. And people were like, girl, it's too late. Like, you already made your bed. Like, don't even try now. I don't know. I feel like maybe she took the feedback in the comments and decided like, maybe I messed up here. Let me try to make things better. And so now she's posting it. But like, I don't know. I feel like the internet is not very forgiving sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is a whole one strike and you're out sentiment on the internet. Even though it should be more of like, sure, if someone makes a mistake and then later on they acknowledge their mistake and they try to make a difference, like we should at least allow them to go through that change and see how they move forward. It's that whole line. It's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me can't get fooled. No, fool me can't get fooled again. What was that line that George Bush said?
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Oh, I don't know. I was gonna quote J. Cole instead. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that was like J. Cole line.
He said, "Fool me 3 times."
Oh, that one. But remember
Yeah.
he had the George Bush line thing?
Oh, I don't
It
remember.
was right
that
before
one.
that one.
I don't remember that one.
I'll put it in here, whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
but like
yeah.
no, and I think the biggest thing actually about what you just said is the acknowledgement part,
Yeah.
right? Because like you could post something, it doesn't land well, you're getting criticized, and you read it, you're like, ooh, yeah, you know what? They're right. Let me educate myself, and then all of a sudden you change your stance and you post up something new with your new stance. But there's no actual acknowledgement that you're letting everyone else know. Like you've acknowledged it behind closed doors, but they don't know. So I think for her, for example, if she did educate herself and now she's taking the right steps towards using her platform to speak up against this, at least put that acknowledgement out there too. And unfortunately, like, you know, people could argue like, oh, you don't have to explain yourself.
So she more to act like it didn't happen.
Yeah, like, oh, I was on the right side all along type of thing, you know? Like, I think for her, what would have worked for her is to make a video to say like, hi guys, I messed up. Like I, you know, posted this because of whatever reason she initially posted it. I saw your feedback. I educated myself. You were right. I didn't know too much about the situation at the time. And I think that would have helped her.
Yeah.
Right now, I feel like whatever she posts, it is just not going to land well for her, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's just one case. But in the meantime, to go back to the sponsorships and all these things, like, you know, as they're still trying to make their money out here, we should start, and actually this relates to the boycott thing, we should start promoting and propping up companies that have shown that they have a positive humanitarian past, not only in the Palestine situation, but in most situations, because you'll find that a lot of the companies who are in the pro-Israeli side also have like connections to like pretty shady business in other cases.
Yeah.
So we should be more focused on who we're giving our money to and propping up those companies so they're able to maybe add more money to their marketing department and start to sponsor these influencers who are maybe being shunned or being blackballed from these major companies who are more on the pro-Israeli side.
Right.
So we almost build a separate economy that doesn't rely on these companies. So these influencers who are trying to still make money out here don't feel like if they make their voice known on a situation that they'll get what do you call it, like
they don't have to compromise
they don't have to compromise their views just to make a living.
I get you.
So yeah, that's another thing that we can do.
Situation.
Yeah, that's another thing we can do. Take the way that we as consumers and as individuals,
our power comes from our dollar.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep throwing your words in your mouth. Go on.
No, just essentially what she's trying to say, like, just see where you be more intentional about where your money is going, and realize that, like, at the end of the day, all these people in power, they still rely on the individual, and a lot of times they rely on people being ignorant to the situation, like we were speaking about in the beginning. So it's up to us to educate more people and start making intentional moves with how we spend our money and how we do our dealings and who we interact with and who we support. So that's just a big takeaway there. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I knew we shouldn't have I don't know why I trusted, this is my fault. I trusted Western media, okay? Because there's an update on a story that we spoke about in relation to Hasan Minhaj, where, so I think it was literally just 2 episodes ago we brought it up, but essentially it came out that, like, well, it was reported by the New Yorker that a lot of the stories he told in his comedy specials were like completely made up, or at least they weren't exactly as he reported them in his special. But he came out with a video recently to basically clear up the air, because he didn't really have an official statement on this whole situation. He was kind of doing his own thing. He kind of brushed it off at first, but really it seemed like he brushed it off.
Yeah.
But really it's because he was building up a case for himself to show, like, okay, these are the facts. And the major one was the one that we spoke about, and we spoke about all of them, but the major one was that about the girl who had racist parents and ended up like not going to prom with him because of that. So it was reported in the article that it actually wasn't because of that, and like it was just him being like butthurt from being denied a date or being denied by the girl. And it turned out that like he actually went to the New Yorker and did an interview with them to like tell them the story and like see how he came up with these premises on his special. And they like misconstrued his words. They took words from here and there and like stitched it together and made it sound like something completely different from what the actual situation was. So like in that situation, he actually did, in the prom situation, he actually did go to the parents, but it was a few days earlier. In the story, he said that it happened on prom date, on the prom day that he got denied by the parents, but he actually said that the only difference is that he went a few days earlier, and then they said, oh no, we're not going to let our daughter go out with someone like you, which essentially is because he was a brown kid. So that story was completely taken out of context and used against him. So that was the major focus. But then, of course, there are the other stories. And he did acknowledge and he did say he's sorry because he did take like the situation, especially with the anthrax situation. It didn't actually end up falling on his daughter, but he did actually receive an envelope which seemed to have anthrax in it. And his daughter wasn't under him, but like she was like next to him. It didn't touch her, but that's how he kind of played with the story, because his wife later came when that happened, because he didn't even take her to the hospital. That part of the story, like that didn't happen. But the one thing that did happen is that he did have a conversation with his wife, and it's like she did actually ask him like, how if this was real?
Yeah.
And he used that as like his inspiration, because the thing he kept coming back to was saying, this was my emotional truth. Like it might not have happened this way, but emotionally, this is the truth. This is how we were feeling. This is how this is how we felt at this situation.
Right.
Because she did say that, like, how if it did get on our daughter? Like, what would you have done? So he was sorry about how he, misrepresented the story, or like changed it so that it to make it sound more sensational, or like to get the point across more, even more. But like the emotional truth is still there.
Yeah.
And same thing for the situation with the FBI agent. Sure, there wasn't like a actual FBI agent that he knew, and he didn't get like, arrested by the cops and all that. But he knew someone who was from his mosque. Like there was an actual story like that from his mosque, where there was an individual. I wish I remembered his name right now, but there was an individual from his mosque who was set up, entrapped by the government, and put in jail for 15 years. I think he actually went to Guantanamo Bay. Damn. He was put in jail for 15 years for and they entrapped him. They like essentially coaxed him into saying things that they may kind of like relate to back to like terrorism and extremism, to use that against him with the Patriot Act and all that stuff. So that did happen, but it wasn't to him specifically, and that's how he kind of. But the emotional truth was still there. There still were FBI agents who were posing as Muslims and going into mosques,
right,
and setting up literally kids, to put them in jail for many years, like in that case. So the emotional truth was there. That's what he kept going back to. The emotional truth is there, but he is sorry about how he misrepresented the story, at least the exact facts of the story.
I mean, did people really think that all comedians told like 100% factual stories? Like, did they really think that?
No one really thought it was 100%, but like the way the New Yorker made it sound is that they were completely made up, like they didn't happen. There
was that argument, but then there's also the argument that I saw where they were saying like Hasan is using Muslim like Islamophobia and what was the other one? Racism against like Southeast Asians as his premise for the stories, when like these things didn't even happen. So like, why play on those things? And I'm like, I didn't see it in that way. Like maybe he was telling these stories to shed light on it.
Yeah, like that's where he said like, maybe that's my mistake. He said he's open to criticism. Yeah. He sees where the faults are and he's sorry for that. And maybe he's going to try and be better at that in the future, because he has another special that he's doing right now. He's touring with it. But at the end of the day, the emotional truth were still there. Yeah. So like those things are actually happening, and he was adjacent to a lot of situations. Like he was there for those situations, but it may not have happened to him exactly. He just put himself in the middle of that spot there.
Yeah, I mean,
in that spotlight.
I can respect his apology, especially for, one to be open to criticism, acknowledging it directly. Like that's big. So
yeah, but it also makes you realize that like you should never really, especially when it comes to Western media, like.
But we all know that's true. Like,
and
we all know
especially if they're
that.
going after like someone who's a Muslim,
Yeah,
who's a person of color, like you should be a lot more critical on how they're representing his story, because they will twist it as much as they can, especially with someone who has had a lot of international attention on them specifically, because remember the Saudi government hated him. There's an episode they made on Patriarch, the show, about the Saudi government, and it was actually taken off the air.
Yeah,
It was taken off Netflix because of how much attention it got from the Saudi government.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But I mean, that's a learning opportunity for him. So now he knows, hopefully, for his next like special.
yeah.
But he can't like make any changes to the one that he's currently on now, right? Like
Well, I'm
the
sure he
tour.
probably learned this already,
Oh yeah.
maybe from individuals. I'm assuming that. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't make this apology and then come out with another special where he does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
If he does, then of course that's where the whole second time, maybe it's a 2-strike limit.
Yeah. I guess.
At least on the internet, that's better than the 1 strike we currently have. Okay.
Yeah. That is.
If we work at least towards a 2-strike system, that's 100% better than what we had before.
That's true. That's true. I won't disagree with that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clear that before we ended it off here. So
Yeah.
that was a long episode, or was it a long
No,
episode?
not really.
Not really. We're at the 120 minute.
I mean, honestly, like a lot of you guys like the 1 hour 42 minute or however long the last week's episode was, but maybe we'll get into like longer episodes.
There's more stuff that we're thinking of like adding to like get more interaction from you guys.
Yeah.
And maybe bring some some structure to the podcast.
Right.
So inshallah we'll start working on that in the next few episodes. But for now, thank you for listening. You can remember to follow us. I almost forgot what I was going to say.
I know. I was like,
You can remember to follow us on all our social medias at Cousin Connection Pod. We haven't done this in a while.
we really have.
Yeah. And remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video. That really does help, especially now with all this stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
The algorithm does not like us.
It doesn't.
So like I mentioned, support your local influencers or local podcasters and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Even if you're just an audio listener, it helps if you go to subscribe to the channel and just like the video whenever you get the chance, because it'll hopefully get us back into the good graces of the algorithm. But until then, thank you again for listening. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.